Hey everyone, thank you so much for your interest in store leads. If you have an app that serves e-commerce stores, if you have an agency, if you're an investor or a researcher studying the e-commerce space, if you have a 3PL or you're in the shipping industry, if you're serving e-commerce stores in any way, we hope to make your work so much easier. I don't want to spend too much of your time on the intro, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning a quick story of how we got here. Our founder Tyler had a Shopify app that he was trying to promote. In an effort to create more targeted ads for his app, he looked at various solutions to find e-commerce leads, and what he found was that most lead generation software is very high level, focusing on all industries and not e-commerce specifically. He just couldn't find detailed enough data points for his campaigns, so he built store leads and later found out that it was more valuable to others than the app that he was building. My name is Amar, and I'll be taking you through this demo. I previously worked at Shopify in Google's shopping department where I was a sales rep, selling different marketing services and tech products to e-commerce store owners. So I really dealt with the problem of good lead generation firsthand. When I found store leads, it was a complete breakthrough for my sales career, totally boosting my sales. Now our entire team's goal is to help others who are going through these things greatly improve their work. We want store leads to be the mecca of e-commerce data. We believe we have the most detailed database of e-commerce stores in the world, and our goal and vision for the product is to collect as much public data on e-commerce stores as possible so that we can help our users with lead generation and market research. Our servers crawl the internet every day looking for every e-commerce store they can find around the world. These are standalone e-commerce stores that have their own checkout page. It takes our servers about a full week to get through the web, so we publish our findings and update the database every Sunday night so that when you get into the office Monday morning, you have new data. Every week, we find that about 200,000 e-commerce stores have come online. So we add those to the database and we find that about 150,000 stores have gone inactive. So we remove them from the UI as we find that those inactive stores are not very useful to our users. On average, the database is growing by about 50,000 leads every week. At the time of this recording, we currently have about 11.1 million leads, and we're tracking them across 199 different e-commerce platforms. If you're wondering which e-commerce platforms we track, you can scroll down our landing page. And we're constantly updating this, so if you have any requests for platforms that we should support, please let us know. So let's get into it. When you first log into the dashboard, you'll be able to see all the leads at a glance. You can scroll from left to right to view them here. You can move data points around like this. You can expand and retract data points like this. And if there's any data points that you'd like to reveal, you can click on this icon in the bottom right corner. So for example, let's say I want to reveal the returns page URL of an e-commerce store. And you can see on the left here, I can apply some basic filters. For the beginning of this demo, I'll use basic search and then I'll switch to advanced search later on, which is more powerful. So let's say I use basic search to look for all the stores that are on Shopify. You can see here, now at a glance, I can view the returns page URL of these Shopify stores. So if we continue to use basic search, we can again look for all the stores that are on Shopify that, let's say, have an active status because we're also storing password protected stores. And that's good for some people because maybe they want to get in front of these stores before they lift the password off their storefront. And maybe we want them to have been created in October 2022. And let's say we want them to be in a certain category. So we have a machine learning algorithm that looks at a store, tries to figure out what it's selling, and puts them in a specific category. You can see here that we have top level categories, but we further filter for subcategories. So you can see I can specifically look for all the stores that, let's say, sell eyewear. And maybe I want them to have a specific app or technology installed. So here I can do a search for all the stores that have Klaviyo installed. And let's add one more thing. Let's make sure that they are in the USA. So you can see here, these are our leads. And you can see that this store sells eyewear. And if we look at the app and tech section of this store, you can see that they installed Klaviyo on October 21st, 2022. So going back to our active query, we can export leads by clicking here. And you can see there's a lot of data points that you can export into different columns of your spreadsheet. And if you have any requests for data points, please let us know. There's also some export options down here. So for example, this one, do not export every merchant subdomain. This will only export one lead in a cluster of leads. For example, a cluster is something like gymshark.com, uk.gymshark.com, ca.gymshark.com. If you only want one of those leads, then you can click here and you can export like this. And one thing that we think is really cool is that you can export like millions of leads using store leads. There's no limit on either the pro plan or the elite plan. So we think that's very powerful. Something else worth noting here is that you can actually do bulk operations within the store leads interface. So for example, let's say we're looking for all the stores that have an Instagram page. And maybe we want to further filter for stores that are in a certain niche, like women's clothing. Instead of opening each Instagram page one by one, we can open them up in bulk like this. So here you can see within the same browser session, I can view multiple pages at once and shift between them using keyboard shortcuts. And I can open other things like their website, just like this. So now that we've done a query in basic search, let's switch to advanced search like this. And for now, let's build a few examples of more detailed lists that could be helpful for prospecting. So in this example, let's say we're a TikTok ads agency that helps specific brands grow. The first thing we can do here is build a list of all the stores that are estimated to be doing a specific amount in sales. For example, we could build a list of all the stores that are doing over $50,000 USD in sales per month like this. Now that we have the estimated sales filter applied, we can apply another filter like this. Under technologies, we can look for all the stores that have recently installed the TikTok pixel. You can see here that the list has dropped to 517 leads. From here, we can add a category filter. And on our website, you can see a full list of all the categories that we're tracking. So for example, let's go with footwear. You can see that 10 stores in the last week have installed the TikTok pixel and they sell footwear. Let's give it a test. And here you can see, if I look at the changelog, that they installed the TikTok pixel recently. And it also looks like they've installed some additional marketing software like Google Analytics recently as well. So this might be a good lead to go after and send them contextual marketing campaigns since they're in the middle of setting up their TikTok campaigns right now. Another example is looking for very specific leads. So let's say you're an agency that helps stores re-platform from one platform to another. For some stores, it doesn't make sense to reach out to them at certain times throughout the year because they're in their busy season. I'm recording this right now before the holidays, so stores that sell Christmas trees probably wouldn't re-platform right now. However, since it's winter, stores that sell seltzers probably would since it's their slow season. Seltzers are alcoholic drinks that people usually drink in the summer, and while our category tracking is pretty detailed, it sometimes isn't detailed enough. For example, the closest we can get to seltzers here is alcoholic beverages, which isn't great since it includes things like wine and beer. To solve this, you can use things like the meta description search filter. And if you don't know what a meta description is, if you Google the name of any company You can see that there is a description here. For example, with store leads, it says ideal for lead generation, data enrichment, market research, and alternative investment data. Every website has a description that the business has written on behalf of themselves for search engines. And knowing this, we can query these descriptions for specific keywords. Knowing all of this, we can once again build a list based off of categories. So let's look for all the stores that sell alcoholic beverages. From here, we can query their meta description for the word seltzer. But we can also stack another filter that excludes keywords like beer and wine to get as close as possible. So you can see here, this store sells seltzers. This meta description concept can be used to find stores that have general themes. See here, I've cleared the query and I'll start building a new list for all stores that are, say, in the cosmetic space. But specifically, I want to find stores that are ethical brands and or environmentally friendly. To do this, I'll query their meta description for the keywords eco, environment, and ethical. So you can see here, this lead shows up because it fits that persona. You can see their description says natural cosmetics collection, cruelty-free, natural beauty products, eco, vegan, no harmful toxins. On top of this, you could also layer on a filter to make sure they have at least 20 products on their website, which might be relevant if you work in logistics. Earlier, I brought up the topic of stores that have recently replatformed from one platform to another. So you could also build a list of all the stores that have recently replatformed to, say, Shopify in the last week. This is super relevant because replatforming is kind of a big deal for merchants. They have a future vision of what their website and business would perform like on a specific platform, but they've probably been putting it off as there's many problems that come up when they do this. So for example, they have to retrain their staff, their SEO takes a hit, so their traffic sinks during this time. They have to redesign their website and they have to get new apps for their new store. So, when they do finally get around to replatforming, it's usually a great time to get in front of them with new marketing services to help with their traffic and new apps for their store. So to build this list, you can see here I've started with a new query. And what you'll want to do is look for the last platform change at field and make sure it's set to last week. From there, you can also specify which platform you want the merchant to have migrated to. And if you want, you can also layer on a filter for which platform they were coming from. So you can see here, this store switched from Magento on November 3rd to Shopify, and specifically they're on Shopify Plus. Speaking of Shopify Plus, I wanted to transition into this diagram as stores that have recently upgraded to Plus are also a great signal of growth. Not only that, there are some Shopify Plus exclusive features that you could fit into your product or service offering now that you have access to things like their checkout page. If we look at the trajectory of a Shopify Plus store, maybe they start off as a small Shopify store, grow, and then around this point here, usually around the 1 million mark, they tend to upgrade to Shopify Plus. But just because a store is on Shopify Plus doesn't necessarily mean it's doing well. This is because there are a lot of test stores / development stores that are on Shopify Plus. So we need to filter out that noise to make sure we're finding stores that have upgraded to Shopify Plus because they're doing well. To do this, I'll switch back into advanced search and store leads and look for all the stores that have recently upgraded to Shopify Plus using a combination of the last plan change at field and the current plan field. From here, we can use something called the platform rank percentile field, which scores all the stores on the same platform against each other, giving them a percentage score out of 100. You can think of this field like the phrase, they're in the top 2% of their class. This makes sense because if we're trying to filter out the signal from all the noise in the Shopify Plus database by specifically finding stores that have upgraded to Shopify Plus because it makes sense, then it would also make sense for them to be in the top 2% of Shopify stores. So if we test this lead, we can see that they started their e-commerce store on August 31st, 2018, and they upgraded to Shopify Plus on November 1st, 2022. There is one issue with this lead, however, which is that they recently switched from Magento in 2021 to Shopify. So this isn't really telling a growth story of a small Shopify store that upgraded to Shopify Plus because it made sense for them to do so. This is more of a migration story. So to filter out these leads, you can also layer on another filter to remove all the stores that have recently re-platformed or re-platformed at all. To do this, you'll select the last platform field and make sure it's blank. So if we test this again, we can see that this store has always been on Shopify. They started their store on June 15th, 2018, and they upgraded to Shopify Plus this last week. Going back to this diagram, we can see that although looking for stores that have recently upgraded to Shopify Plus is a great signal of growth, another great signal for all stores across all platforms is if they've recently been growing their social media following. For this, we can build a list of, say, all the stores that have increased their TikTok followers by 50% in the last 30 days. But since we still want them to be relatively small, we can cap them between having 1,000 to, say, 20,000 TikTok followers. Here you can see that we're tracking a lot of social media channels for brands by checking any hyperlinks that point to social media pages on their website. From there, we crawl their follower counts and compare them to the previous times we've crawled their followers. We can do this for things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, TikTok, and more. So here, let's build that list of all the stores that have increased their TikTok followers by 50% in the last 30 days. And since we want them to be relatively small, let's make sure that they are in the range of having 1,000 to 20,000 TikTok followers. So here you can see that this brand recently increased their TikTok followers by a lot. Another great example is the idea of finding newly created stores that already have a lot of social media followers. I remember one time I was on vacation with my family and I found a shirt that I really liked at a boutique store in a hotel we were staying at. When I got home, I tried to buy more clothes from that brand, but I realized they didn't have a direct-to-consumer store. This must have been an older brand that was always selling its clothes through wholesale retailers and may not have seen the need to go D2C. Eventually, however, I'm sure this brand will create a D2C store, and when they do eventually get into D2C for the first time, they'll be bringing a whole business with them, with brand recognition, social media followers, inventory, etc. Knowing that this legacy store has come online for the first time, you could potentially help them with their new D2C division. To build this list, we can first start by identifying all the stores that have come online in the last week, and then layer on the combined social media followers filter to make sure that they have at least, let's say, 10,000 followers across all their social channels. Also, we can layer on a state filter to make sure that they're local to us. So for example, we can add a filter to make sure they're also based out of California. So let's test one of these leads. We can see here that this store has over 95,000 followers on Pinterest. And this store was just created recently. Now, I can keep going on and on with list examples, and if you ever need ideas on how to build relevant lists for your business, please email us because I know our team would be thrilled to help. But let's now move on to another topic, which is contact info. Our goal and vision for the product is to build the world's most detailed database of e-commerce data so that you can do specific research. We do have email addresses and phone numbers. For example, if you look at the store, kyliecosmetics.com, you can see here that the email we're storing for them is customerservice@kyliecosmetics.com, and this is the phone number we found. These emails and phone numbers that we're collecting are whatever we can find on the store's website. We usually find these in the footer pages or contact pages of the site. These are great emails if you're looking for smaller businesses where a decision maker is likely checking that email. They're emails like support at, info at, hello at, contact at, etc. Not to mention, those emails have great deliverability because they're added to the website by the business and we even check them for typos. But we also know that a lot of our users need more personal contact info. Now, we don't sell personal contact data ourselves, and because of this, historically, most of our users were exporting lists from store leads and importing them manually into third-party platforms to get these lists enriched with personal contact data. To solve for this, we started integrating with third-party personal data providers like Apollo and Cognizant to make this process way easier for our users. If you ever have any requests for personal integrations we should support, please let us know. As an example, I've already integrated Apollo with my store leads account for this demo. Once you do this, you can see that this tab is revealed, where you can now see people's names, job titles. You can search for job function right here. You can click on their LinkedIn like this. And you can even directly send these leads to your CRM. Now, if you hang on a little bit longer, I'll show you how you can do some really cool stuff with this, where you can send bulk amounts of information from what we call a dynamic list, a fluctuating list, using combined store leads data and personal contact data from a personal data vendor like Apollo. So I'll show you that in a bit. But for now, let's talk about CRMs. At the time of this recording, we have a detailed integration with both Salesforce and HubSpot, although I'd encourage you to check out the integrations page as we're planning to add more. For this demo, I'll walk you through a quick overview of the HubSpot integration, but please know that the Salesforce integration works much the same way. So the first thing we'll need to do is go to the integrations page and click HubSpot. From there, you'll need to connect your HubSpot account like this. And as soon as the account is connected, you'll notice that we've created new properties in your CRM on both the company level and the contact level. Each property that we've created starts with SL, which is short for store leads. The reason we do this is that we don't want to overwrite any of the existing properties that you already have. But if you wish to do so, you can just remap any of the existing store leads fields to your HubSpot properties like this. Now, if you don't use store leads for anything else, you can use it as an enrichment tool, because by default, every Sunday when we do the database update, we check the records in your CRM and we do a fuzzy match to see if any of them match ours. So if you had kyliecosmetics.com in your CRM, we would automatically enrich that company record with all the properties that you have mapped here. You can also do this at any time by clicking the Enrich All Now button at the top. Also, if you add a company anytime throughout the week in HubSpot, it will automatically get enriched immediately. Now that we have the basics of the CRM integration covered, it's time to talk about workflows. You can think of a workflow like an automatic sequence of events that can do things like add records to your CRM every week, send you an email notification whenever certain leads come online, and more. To demonstrate a workflow in action, let's build a list first for that workflow to work off of. And in the spirit of finding very specific leads, let's say we want to build a list of, say, all the Shopify stores that have uploaded at least 100 product images to their website in the last 30 days. That are not dropshipping. For this, I've transitioned back to the domain section of store leads, and I'll go into advanced search. I'll look for all the Shopify stores, and using the product images created 30 days filter, I'll look for all the stores that have uploaded at least 100 product images to their store in the last month. And under the tags filter, you can see that we have an algorithm that will detect if a store appears to be a dropshipper. So I'll remove all the stores that appear to be dropshippers from the list. Now that we have our list, we'll want to save it by clicking the star icon at the top. So you can see that this list will now be saved in the lists section of store leads. From here, what we'll want to do is start creating our workflow by clicking this button. And from here, we'll want to start stacking our workflow events. So by default, you can see that I'll be getting an email with the details of this list every time the workflow is run, which happens automatically every Sunday. But I can also add other actions like the ability to send these leads to HubSpot. So for this workflow, I'll choose to create new stores and update them as well. Every time the workflow is run, this will make it so that every time a non-dropshipping Shopify store comes online and uploads over 100 product images to their site, they'll be automatically added to my CRM. Now, I'm going to open store leads in a new tab for a moment because I want to jump back to the Apollo integration to show you something. This will all come together in a moment. Since Apollo is my personal data vendor of choice, I'm going to go into that section to define some personas. Personas are like job functions. So I'll create a persona here for C-level execs. I'll create another one for a VP of marketing. I'll create another one for a VP of operations. And I'll create one more for a director of e-commerce. Since e-commerce is spelled a few different ways, I'll type in multiple variations here. Now that we have personas set up, let's go back to the workflow we were creating because now we can add contact creation rules to our automation. So the process will be such that store leads will find extremely specific e-commerce leads every Sunday night when we do the database update, and then call on Apollo to find personal contact info for these leads, and then send the combined data to our CRM. So here, I'll add a contact creation rule that matches the workflow, meaning that a contact will be created when a new store is created in my CRM, but also a contact will be created when we enrich existing stores that are in this list in my CRM. So here I'll ask Apollo to find 2 matches for C-level executives with both a verified email address and an extrapolated email address, which is an educated guess as to what Apollo thinks the email might be. It would have a higher bounce rate, but it still might be worth including those. You'll have the option. I'll do the same thing here for a VP of marketing, but I'll only choose one. And I'll do the same thing for a director of e-com. And if I want, I can fall back on the generic email address that Store Leads has, because if Apollo can't find any matches, that generic email address is better than none. I'm going to open my HubSpot account in a new tab for a moment, just to show that I currently don't have any companies or contacts in there. Now I'll go back to the workflow and save it. And if I don't do anything else, this workflow will keep running automatically every Sunday night. For this demo though, I'll manually run it by clicking the Save and Run Now button. This list is pretty big, almost 100,000 stores, but almost immediately this workflow has been pushing thousands of companies and contacts to my HubSpot account. I can review how this workflow is doing in real time by clicking the Status and Logs section. And if I switch to my HubSpot account, you can see that it's raining companies and contacts. All right, now that we've covered the topic of workflows and combining store leads data with personal data at scale, let's move on to another topic, which is enriching a list that you already have. Let's say that you just did a webinar or attended a trade show, or maybe you even found another list somewhere online. You'll probably want more data points on this list so that you can make routing decisions. With store leads, you can upload a CSV file to get those leads enriched with our many data points. To demo this, I'll start with a list in a spreadsheet. So let's say I have 4 leads. KylieCosmetics.com, Gymshark.com, Kith.com, and VioriClothing.com. From here, I'll export the list. And I'll go into store leads, click on lists, create new list. So I'll call this Enrichment Demo Test. I'll upload the list here. And here you can see I can download an enriched file and select the data points that I want. And if you remember, I only had 4 leads to start with 1 column. Now those 4 leads have many additional columns with dozens of additional data points. Now that I've uploaded this custom list, I can use it and stack it to either remove it from another list or add it to another list that I'm building in store leads. This is great if you want to remove any of your existing customers that you may have from a list that you're building, or remove any leads that you've previously exhausted. For this example, let's look at all the stores that have an email marketing app installed and then remove this list that we've uploaded from that list. Here, I've transitioned back to store leads and I'll begin the process of building a list of all stores that have email marketing apps installed. Please know that there's a full list of all the apps we're tracking on our website, as well as a list of all the technologies we're tracking. The difference between software that is an app or software that is a technology is that apps are downloaded from a commercial app store like the Shopify App Store, Magento App Store, Wix App Store, WooCommerce App Store, whereas technologies are not. But if a vendor appears as both an app and a technology, it's best to use the technology filter since that has all the results the app filter has and more. Now, to build this list, I'll go back to advanced search. Look for all the stores that have email marketing apps installed. That should be enough. By the way, you can also filter out all stores that are already in your CRM like this. And finally, here we can also filter out all the leads we've manually uploaded via CSV. So you can see here that Viori Clothing is in this list. by applying a not or operation, the Yori clothing goes away. Since we've been on the topic of apps, you should know that we also have an apps section in Store Leads where we crawl the commercial app stores every day and update findings like install counts, user lists for each app, review counts over time, and more. Now, you should also know that we have a really handy Chrome extension, which is great for browsing the web. Anytime you're visiting a store, you can see high-level info on the store, and you can even send the store directly to your CRM from the Chrome extension. This maps with your CRM really well. So, for example, if you want, you can have a custom field from your CRM appear here at a glance. For example, if you were a sales rep, you could map the attached salesperson's name to the Chrome extension so you can see who's working the account at a glance. This is especially great for quick research before a sales call. For developers and power users, you should know that we have an open API, which is available on some plans. This will allow you to build custom apps using our data. We also have something called the historical API, which basically allows you to download every data set that we've published every week over the last few years, so that you can process this data in, say, a BI tool and make week over week comparisons. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what you can do with Store Leads. We've seen clients dive way deeper than this. We've seen some clients build elastic pools of accounts for some of their reps. We've seen some clients build Slack notification systems for competitive intel or alerting certain reps when specific leads show up in their territory. You can really dive deep into this e-commerce growth hacking world and boost your sales. So we hope this demo has been informative. Thanks again for your interest. If you have any questions, feature suggestions, data suggestions, or if you'd like to talk about this in more detail, please don't hesitate to contact us. We hope to work with you and we wish you all the best in your work.